for coming. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm Eleanor Stringer. I'm one of the local councillors for Abbey Ward. So we're in Abbey Ward at the moment, and that stretches, it's got kind of South Wimbledon at the middle of it, and it goes from Wandle Bank to the tram line and down to Nursery Road and kind of up to just above here essentially. And I was elected in May alongside my colleague Ben Butler, who sadly can't be here. He's not very well at the moment. But we wanted to have this meeting because when we've been knocking on the doors both before and after the election, one of the main issues coming up is the change to the refuse collection service, which is coming in a few weeks. So we wanted to have a meeting so that we can have a chance to answer all of your questions about this. And then one of the other issues that people are asking about is the new school. So we'll, once we've dealt with all the issues around bins, we can give an update on what's happening with that, and if anyone has any questions, we'll see if we can respond to those as well. And the main aim is to, hear from you and answer your questions. Anything we can't answer, we'll take away and we'll try and deal with. If you haven't picked one up already, there's some copies of the newsletter at the back that have contact details for myself and Ben. In this task of asking all your questions, I'm going to be ably assisted by several other councillors in the room. So we've got Martin. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Councillor Martin Welton. I am currently the Cabinet Member for Regeneration, Housing and Transport. So I have a wide range portfolio. One of them is the regeneration of the High Park estate. Other one is traffic and highways. Other responsibilities include parking and actually the regeneration of Walden Town Centre. So there's a whole wide range of issues. I've been a councillor for Merton Council for 16 years. Previous to this role, I was Cabinet Member for Education, and before that, Cabinet Member for Community and Culture. So I know South Wimbledon very, very well. I've worked alongside Eleanor, Ben, and before that, Katie, Abigail and Andrew, because I know there's a lot actually been happening in this area, and one of the big things at the moment is the introduction of wheelie bins.
Yeah. Just to introduce another couple of councillors in the room who may chip in with opinions from their wards. We've got Councillor Mark Kenny.
Good afternoon, I'm Mark Kenny, newly elected member for Cannon Hill Ward, and I'm here because the Harris Academy temporary accommodation for the next 2 years has opened last week actually, in Wheelie Avenue, which is part of Cannon Hill, and I was there the first day that it opened to see the children, see the new traffic arrangements and also speak to their teacher.
And Mark's colleague in Cannon Hill is Pauline.
Yes, I was re-elected as a councillor for Cannon Hill in May, and I am here, as Mark has said, because the first tranche of Harris School students have moved into Cannon Hill.
I don't think I can hear you at the back.
I'm so sorry, but I'm here for the same reasons that Mark is here. Is that okay?
Yeah, and we've got a number of kind of non-Abbey residents that I recognise here, which I think is fine because bins is a cross-Merton issue, and I know that some other wards haven't, their councillors haven't organised such meetings. But it would be useful for me if you could just put your hands up if you do actually live in Abbey Ward, if you know that you do. Okay, great, that's really useful. So, is it best off starting off with a quick overview of the change to the service? And then I think we'll quite quickly move on to taking questions from people who have questions and concerns about how it's going to work, and just see how that goes. So I imagine if most of you here for the bins, it means that you live in houses and in maisonettes, because they're the ones who are having the biggest change to the service. So if you haven't already, you will be getting delivered pretty soon these wheelie bins. You should already have one of the external kitchen food-based caddies. If you don't, you can go online and request one. Somebody I've already spoken to today, that was their questions that they didn't have one. You can go and request one. And you also should already have some recycling bins that you're currently using for your mixed recycling. Keep these, don't chuck them away. You will need these under the new service. From the first one, yes.
In my garden, I've got no room to put two bins.
Okay, we can come on to that. We'll go straight on to. I just want to explain what the service is first, and then we can come on to the type of questions and concerns like that. But people are raising. So yeah, so everyone is going to be delivered these bins unless they unless the assessment has been that they physically can't fit them in. So we can come back to this issue. So for example, in this ward, most of Hayden's Road and the main high streets will continue to have plastic bags that they will put out, but it'll still be a fortnightly collection. If you're having these bins, the black one is going to be for your general waste, so that you're kind of left over everything that you can't recycle. And one of the main aims of the move to this service is to reduce the amount of non-recyclable waste that people are putting out. This is one of the aims of what we're trying to do. The nice blue bin is for your paper and cardboards. It has a lid on it, so at the moment when you put your cardboard in with your mixed recycling, it can get wet and it can get damaged, and it can't be sold and recycled for as high price into as high quality new products as it can if it's all kept dry. A few people have commented that they don't think they're going to fill up the bin with paper. It's not a competition. You're not meant to be trying to fill it up. That's fine. But this was the size that we got. Your glass, plastic, and other recyclables will continue to go in the boxes, and obviously the food waste in the food waste. In terms of the timing, the food waste is going to be collected every single week. The new collection day for this ward is Tuesday. That might vary for other people here from other wards, but in this ward it's Tuesday.
North of Merton High Street and South of High Street, they're different days. Yeah.
I just thought Abbey was Tuesday. Okay, there we go. But when you get delivered your new bins, they will come with a leaflet which will tell you in much more detail kind of what we're covering today, including at the back of it is a handy little calendar which you can go and rip out and put on your fridge, which says exactly which collection is happening when. So on Tuesday, or whenever your collection day is, every single week you can put your food waste out and they will come and collect that. And then 1 week you put out both wheelie bins presented at the front of your property, and the bin men will empty them and return them to your property. I'm sure that's one of the questions that people will have, and we can come back to that. And then on the other weeks when you're not putting the wheelie bins out, you're putting out your boxes with your all your wine bottles and your recyclable plastics.
Well, I'm not sure that's correct. I had a good look at the chart, and I thought the black bin and the blue bin were separate weeks.
Could you speak up?
They are separate. So your waste bin is 1 week, and your recycling bin is the next. But food waste is every week.
I'm really sorry. I did hear yesterday. I was talking to a council officer who said you put both of them out at the same time.
Yeah.
No? Okay. And on the nice little calendar, I haven't got my bins yet, so I haven't seen the nice little calendar. But it will make really clear exactly which bins you're putting out. And there will inevitably be, in the first couple of months, people getting it wrong and, including myself, by the sounds of it. So do you see it's going to be all the recycling 1 week and all the refuse 1 week?
All refuse 1 week, recycling the next.
There we go.
I think there's different recycling. Mine says on Tuesday.
Yeah, the different days. So 1 week
it says one recycling one
week you'll have to recycle.
The other recycling the other week.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so recycling 1 week, general waste the other.
No, you're saying something.
No, there's 2 lots of recycling.
Yes, there's 2 lots of recycling.
So there's glass and plastic, and then there's paper
and card. The paper and card.
And the paper and the card and the glass and plastic go on
will
alternate weeks.
Yes.
So it could be.
That's right.
It could well be that you're right that the 2 bins go at the
I
same
was told
time.
both bins, but you will get a plastic leaflet.
What about food bags? Are they going to be free and collectible?
Food bags aren't free. They're not free at the moment. You will have to supply, but the food waste will be collected every week. We do want to encourage more people to use food waste.
Right, excuse me. You guys are talking about these bags. Apparently there's going to be fines for fly tipping if you use these wrong. Already you guys have implemented it, have no idea what's going on about what the routines are. When that comes into effect, what are the fines, please, for fly tipping, and when do they come in?
I think we'll get onto the presentation. First. Take questions.
The aim of none of this is to try and find people, and what we've just said is we know this is going to take time. It's not like on the first. We're not going to have people going out on the 1st of October trying to trip people up and trying to say, you took the wrong thing.
But you must have an idea, right? I mean, this company is run by Viola.
Veolia.
Yes. Right. Okay then. I mean, what's their performance like? I know you have published weekly performance on their weekly information published on your dashboard, but it's not available for the public. It's not just confidential.
That is now available for the public.
Sorry?
It is now available for the public.
So I can look it up.
Yes.
Anyone in
I
the
can share it. I was going to,
Okay.
On what basis would you take away the contract? Because, I mean, they're obviously underperforming now, so what is, you know, it's like all right having a traffic light or whatever saying they're not performing, but on what basis will that be removed?
That's a really good question. Can we come on to, because that follows on from the if we get this service right, Viola was saying if Viola are used to this service in other areas that they work, and one of their arguments that they will be able to improve the rest of their service once this system is in place. So I do want to make sure that we've kind of all dealt with people's questions about the new structure and the wheelie bins first, and then we can come on to questions about foreign services.
Question then about the new bins.
Yes.
What size bins are these?
These are 180 litre bins. There are three options.
Smaller ones.
There were three options.
There were initially.
These are the standard bins.
These are standard bins. Everybody's going to get these. When the service was being introduced, there were different options being considered. Initially, larger bins were being considered, and in response to 240, and in response to partly feedback and councillors raising questions, this is decided to be the standard bin. You can, if you think that this bin is not large enough for your property, you can go onto the website and put in a request for a larger bin.
Smaller bins.
So this is okay. So I get some people coming to me asking for larger bins and some coming asking for smaller bins. At the moment, there is no option to request smaller bins.
There is. We've seen them down the road on the way here. We've seen ones half the size of these bins, just opposite the church.
Are they going
Delivered
to
by you?
They are.
They're
They're
the same
standard.
market.
They are standard. They are standard. This is the standard size bins.
Issued by the council.
So there is now a third option.
So they might be the old ones.
Are they going
Well,
to
they're all
come into
Wheelie
the
bins,
garden to
They're
remove
standard
it? And are they going to replace
right,
the bins
okay.
back in the garden? Because at present they often leave both the caddies and the boxes on the pavement. Now when you are in your 80s, as I and my partner are, moving these bins about is not going to be easy.
Yeah.
Our household rubbish would go into a bucket each week, no bigger, and to have a bin this size, which we can't really manage, and we're supposed to wait to ask for a smaller bin after we have tried, I think is not reasonable. What solutions can you offer?
So a couple of points there. So firstly, many other areas have these bins already, and there are other. I was just speaking to my neighbour who is elderly and is infirm, and she's had these in Manchester, and she said that she was able to move them herself, no problem. If you have concerns about your ability to actually manoeuvre the bin, you can contact us. We already have assisted collections for those who cannot physically get it from their front garden to where it needs to be. And you can apply for that if you...
Is there a cost for that?
No, there's no cost at all.
And how do you apply for it?
But you haven't answered whether they will come into the garden and take it, or take it back.
They won't come into your garden unless you've requested an assisted collection, in which case they will.
Sorry.
Can I ask you one question?
I'm really sorry. I'm a bit worried that we didn't finish on the questions here as well.
I've been putting my hand up for a long time.
I'm really sorry. It was and the people will be shouting out. So in fact, that's a very fair point. Let's try and have actually people with their hands up, and we'll make sure we're calling a wide number. But I just wanted to come up here and hear about the size of bins.
The bins are far too big for our garden. We spoke to two people now, Merton Council, Teresa, I believe, who said that they'll be in touch regarding an assessment. No one's come back yet. We've called them 3 times. No one's come back.
Where are you? Which road are you?
We're in Balfour Road.
I think we'll take those details
And
afterwards.
if you do deem an assessment needs to happen, what's the practicality of reducing these bins to a smaller one, or discarding them completely and going back to how it once was?
So that isn't an option. If you
Why
could
isn't that an
physically
option? Why isn't that an option?
Because the council have taken a decision to implement
And how much
wheelie
were these
bin.
bins?
Can we just do one question at a time? Please, can we do one question at a time and get an answer?
You're asking some really great questions, but you are often coming in when we're about to say.
So just
But we haven't had an answer yet as to how you get a smaller bin.
Yeah.
To say go online is not enough.
No,
How do you go online?
At the moment, and then we're in the middle of lots of questions about bins, as you can imagine. This is Stephen Allen Bretis, who's leader of the council, and has been to many of these sessions and heard many of these questions from residents. We're talking about the size of the bins. Most of the concerns of people in the room are that, if anything, they want smaller bins. And I'm saying that my understanding that is not currently, you can put in a request for a larger bin at the moment. You cannot currently request it. You cannot currently request a smaller bin. These two people say they've seen smaller bins.
But potentially, now I'm thinking about it, I know there was a trial. Perhaps the trial was smaller bins.
Okay, so the to engage with economies of scale, so that we make the savings of 1.6 million this year and £2 million per year thereafter, so that we can look after vulnerable services like children's services and other social care. We need to make those savings. There are difficult choices to be made between the aesthetics of your front garden that you want to keep nice and not have wheelie bins there, but also I need to look after elderly people, adult social care, children's services. So this is making a huge savings, and in order to make those savings we need economies of scale, and economies of scale rely on...
Sorry, can I interrupt?
Yes.
I just want to know, can we put in for a smaller? I don't want to hear all
So initially everyone gets the same size. Initially everyone gets the same size, but over time, over 6 to 9 to a year, we'll see whether we can be flexible about the size downwards. It'll still be the same height because they have to fit with the dust carts. That's the whole point, so that the whole system works with the dust carts. So we make those savings and we increase recycling. So over time, initially economies of scale, everyone gets the same size, but over time, 6 months, 9 months to a year, we'll engage in a conversation to see whether we can be flexible about smaller ones. If a family is a large family or a house with multiple occupation, they can get bigger ones.
And this thing's been waiting for a while.
Sorry, as it stands, there's no option for smaller bin.
No, not as at today.
So
why are they taking our names when I go to other meetings?
Can I ask?
I'm really sorry.
I said over time you can request.
Okay.
No, I've already
You can't.
request,
You
and
can't,
my name was
Stephen.
taken
For
to get a smaller bin.
So
get
currently,
smaller.
this-
The
Than
140
those-
size, apparently.
Okay, well that
And
was wrong.
Well, that's your councillors
Okay,
that are
well
doing
we'll
that.
sort that out. If you give me your name, I'll sort that out.
I'll give you their
But
name.
at
so
the,
currently, sorry, just to finish
The
off.
lady here has been
Time,
waiting
one
a long
at a
time.
time. Wait, let this gentleman, we'll go to everyone. Let this gentleman.
Too large to fit in our garden because of the way we've structured our
I've been
garden.
putting my hand up
Space.
for so long and you
So
don't
they'll be
answer.
in the road.
Excuse me. I know everyone's got questions, and we've got enough time to get through everyone's questions.
I'll
I know
come
I'm really trying to come to you. It's just we were speaking to this pair of
So quick, at the moment, too large for them, and I'm sure there are others here.
Would you speak up, please, sir? Could you speak up?
So both of these will have to stand on the pavement, and you're entirely fine with blocking a pavement because the size of the bins do not fit in people's gardens.
Right. Are you saying they won't fit in your front garden? So we need to have a discussion with you because we may exempt you if they do not physically fit. But if you're saying the aesthetics of your front garden
No,
or your flower beds, then I'm afraid this would take precedence. Are you saying your front garden is too small for those?
Yeah.
Okay, well we'll have a conversation. We won't force them if your front garden can't take them.
I've already had some properties reassessed, for example, at the edge of Haydens Road, where the front garden is this big, and I think the initial assessors must have thought, oh, that's a big enough front garden, and we have listed it again.
Suppose
Thank you very much for your patience.
we don't want 2 bins, we only want 1. Can that work?
If you have a neighbour, you are able to share, and you're able to put your name down on the list to register that you're sharing with a
So I only
neighbour.
want 1 bin.
Yes,
I
yes.
don't know.
So if you get on with your neighbour and you want to take care of the card, there's your neighbour. Good, that's good. If you want your neighbour to take care of the card and paper, and then you take care of the residual rubbish, then you can work
I
together.
only want the card and paper, I don't want the other.
Yes, well, you can work together. If you only want the card and paper, you'll have to deal with your residual waste. I take it to the recycling centre.
Yeah, with the car. Yeah, with the car to be there.
If the system is engaged in making savings so that we can look after vulnerable people and to increase recycling, initially, can I finish? Initially,
Not everybody in the store feels that way.
Initially,
Come round Hyde Park.
there will be flexibility once the economies of scale kick in after a year. So we will be flexible.
There's some people
I
that-
only want 1 bin, will it be accepted? I only want 1 bin.
But do you mean that you only want 1 bin in your
We can have a
property because
conversation.
you'll have to put your rubbish out somehow?
It's alright, it's my business.
You can put it in
Yes,
my
yes.
bin.
You
I
can.
only want, I
If
only
you
want
want,
1
if you want 1 bin only and you take care of what the other bin takes, that's fine.
There are 2 people at the back who've had their hand up for a
Then
while.
you can have 1
Yeah.
bin.
We'll go to this lady first. And then. Yes, you. So right at the back, and then you. Yes.
Well, first of all, I want to get rid of the blue bin because I want to share it with the neighbour this conversation, because I don't want that second big bin. It's far too much space for my front. A and B, my concern is with the people living on main roads just having plastic bags.
Exactly.
I think the fly tipping is going to be horrendous, because these people do not put the rubbish out. This is especially for Mr. Alabantis and the Cabinet guy. They do not put their rubbish out 1 or 2 days in advance. They just chuck it out well in advance, and these bags are just piling up everywhere. I think the council needs to address this. Also, for smaller households, I think smaller bins must be considered, because they're just far too large and heavy for older people, for people with disabilities, back problems, etc., etc. And I think the smaller bin must be offered. Because at the moment you seem to be thinking about the bigger bins for big families. There's still a lot of single households, elderly people, that's got to be considered.
Okay, thank you for that.
That message is definitely coming across.
There will be an assisted service for people who can't handle the big bins, so there will be an assisted service.
Yeah, but some of us are prepared to manage the bins, but we're just pleading for smaller bins to make it much easier.
Yeah, thank you. We'll take that.
Very kind of thing, hands up there. There's another lady at the back.
How much do they cost?
How much?
These new bins, how much do they cost?
Well, it's quite an exercise to purchase thousands and thousands of wheel bins, but I don't know the exact cost, but what I do know is the net savings of 1.6 million this year. I can get that to you.
Can I just ask, why don't you know the cost?
Well, that's the detail. What I'm interested in is the savings. I can get that to you. I can get that to you.
You must have signed up on it.
Yes, yes, yes.
So you should know how much it costs.
Well, the net saving is what I'm interested in. Hundreds of this would cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. But we can get that to you.
Don't patronise us, Stephen. Don't patronise us. You had the absolutely where your staff didn't even turn up until 20 minutes after it was meant to start. We came there with some very organised questions, very thought out questions, and I'll name the woman because we've written to you about her. Miss Ndudi couldn't answer a single question, and 5-6 weeks down the line we still haven't had a response. Now I've written to you, or Dave's written to you this week about the cost and exactly how the saving is and why you're going down the austerity line. Where is your sense in doing in incentivising us to recycle less? I'll tell you something. We've declined our bins in total, okay? Because we already compost all of our organic waste. We generate about 1/4 of a black sack a fortnight. What do I want one of those things in my garden for? Exactly. And my recycling stuff, I'm more than happy, even though I pay my rates and even though I would pay higher taxes. Okay, even though I would happy to do it, I'm not having it. I will take it to Garth Road myself. I had to travel across the borough to go to Garth Road because you closed down the Weir Road one. Okay, so I'm increasing my mini carbon footprint, and you're making bloody huge, ginormous ones with your trucks going every hundreds of different ones. And
Can I just say that what we're doing here is not revolutionary. It's not radical. It's not something that no one else is doing. We are catching up. No. We're catching up with the vast majority of other boroughs, both in London and nationally. We are catching up with the vast majority of other boroughs who have gone to a wheel bin service. Now, I know change brings in a lot of issues and a lot of problems. We'll go through all those.
It's not better change.
But we're not doing something that is different from other London boroughs.
It is not better change.
Okay, we've still got lots
Sorry,
of...
I've got something to say on that.
No, I'm really sorry.
Can we go through the chair?
We need a chair.
What I really want to do is make sure that we answer people's... The service is happening in a few weeks. We want to make sure that people have answered their questions about service. We can talk about the bigger issues like the service and other aspects of Wheelie later if we get time, but I really want to make sure that we can concentrate on people's questions. And this lady's been waiting for a while.
First point, I would like to return both my bins because I recycle so well I will never ever use them. And two, Veolia should be paying for these because they're saving a lot of labour by going to fortnightly collections. So we should not be paying for Veolia.
Taking my bins back, the guy said to me, the man from Veolia, he said, you will be fined for not recycling. made a note of my address, you will be fined for not recycling.
I don't think that's okay.
We were told we could not return the bins. We had to keep them, even if we were sharing with neighbours, and that they couldn't remove them. And if we couldn't, because they couldn't remove them, we had to find a way of getting rid of them.
Sorry,
So I don't understand how that's
what
saving.
What is true is that because you may decide that as a household you don't need both bins, but if you were to move that the bins belong to the house and the new people would need to stay there. So yeah, you would need to keep them in a garden, in a shed, like.
But that's ridiculous. That's adding carbon. That's ridiculous. How is that a saving? You've rolled out all these extra bins that people don't want and don't need. And you're saying you're making a 1.6 million saving this year, which was more last year. You said you were making a 2.6 million last year on this year, which you're not. And now you're saying that, we're saving and we're serving the vulnerable. There are a lot of vulnerable people in this room who are telling you they do not want these bins. And you have paid for them with our money.
For people who need
and you've increased the carbon footprint because now we have got bins we do not need.
Yes, exactly.
That's your view.
No, it's not my view. It's not just my view.
There are 80.
Anybody with the same view.
Can I just give you the fact?
It's not my view. I'm sorry.
Can I just say something? There are 82,000 households.
42% of this borough are elderly, Stephen.
Can I speak? Thank you.
And
Can I speak?
42% of this borough are elderly.
And weren't consulted. Can I speak?
Of course.
Thank you. There are 82,000 households within the London Borough of Merton. We estimate 64,000 qualify for the wheel bin service. The others do not qualify because they're flats above shops and their frontage opens onto the main road. So we are being flexible. We are making exemptions. Those will continue with the bag service. So we're not foisting anything on anyone. It is a service that a large number of other local boroughs, London plus the country, have a wheel bin service. This is not revolutionary. This is not radical. We're catching up in order to increase recycling rates. We're down at 37%. We need to go up to 47% in order to have cleaner streets and make those savings.
Stephen, it's not going to make sense.
I'm really sorry. We've got some people who've been quietly putting their hand up when I asked Jessica about, but Hillary and this lady have had their hand up for a while. So you go first.
Okay, so the bins are a done deal, so I think it's a bit pointless to keep going on about the argument about the bins. They're coming, but you can hear there's a lot of strength of feeling about the flexibility, and clearly, I mean, I only have one bag a week because I recycle, so it's entirely pointless for my household, and I've got kids, so lots of people are saying we don't need big bins. So you've made a commitment today that you're going to look at this again. So what is this commitment that you're making? Is it going to be a consultation? Does it have a deadline? Is it going to be in 18 months? Are you going to make that public? It can't just be we'll think about it. It has to be a commitment. So if this doesn't work and if Veolia doesn't do its job, that we have some redress, because the decision's made, we get it, but we need to be able to look at that decision. This is a contractor, it's our taxpayers' money. If they don't perform, if they don't pick up litter as they do today, if they throw bins out on the road, if people are upset and they still want to get their smaller bins, what is your commitment that you will listen to residents and do something about it?
So the contract is through the South London Waste Partnership. It's with 4 other boroughs, with 3 other boroughs, Kingston, Sutton and Croydon and ourselves, so that's 4. So each of us will have signed this contract. As I said, in order to make the economies of scale and savings, we will be insisting on everyone taking those. That's out of 82,000, 64,000 qualify. So already we're exempting a huge tranche that can't take them. In order to take care of those economies of scale, after a time, I've said 6, 9, 12 months, we'll see what that is. After a time, we'll start to be flexible with people if they want a smaller bin.
Yeah. But I don't want to question you, but that's not quite what I was saying. I understand that there's some kind of promise there that this might happen. What we're saying is this is a contractor that we pay for. Yeah. What is the process by which we review that contractor's delivery? Yeah. How many years is the contract for? At what point can you say to the contractor you're not delivering, we will dock you, whatever? So what's the arrangement there? I mean, this is a commercial relationship and we should understand.
There is an arrangement, so we do have issues at the moment with Veolia because they're not performing to the level that we expect for you as residents. So there are
Even before it
deductions.
started.
Yes.
Well, they have started.
You said they're not
I'd
performing.
first even if we dealt with
Yeah.
I've
So,
dealt with questions about the bin and then come on to why the Veolia issues actually.
Yeah.
That's an entirely valid question about what we would do with the contract. But
So,
this is happening.
yes. So we will deduct from their contract if they fail.
Smaller bin is
They
the
fail.
answer.
Every year we'll look at the contract. There's an 8-year break clause. And all local authorities will look at that. But each year we will pull them in and see how they're performing and have a dashboard about what's happening. And if they don't perform, we will deduct and fine them.
Sorry. How much have you fined them already? Because they're very poor now.
Yeah, they are.
How much have you deducted from them?
Yeah,
already?
we have made deductions from the contract. I can get you the exact sum. I'm not sure about the exact sum.
I really want to make sure we're dealing with like residents' questions about their service and then come on to the wider concerns. There's been Janet and Hillary and then a couple of people over here. Shall we go? Sorry, you've had your hand up for a while.
I'm here on behalf of the Battles Residents Association. I've got 3 questions. I'll do the quick ones first. If an elderly resident wants an assisted collection, how do they go about getting it? Is there a phone number, or when you say go online, it's not helpful?
Yeah.
You need a website to know
So,
what to do.
so through their councillor, through myself, as we're here, if Viola were here, through the officer that would have been here. So yes, they can get in touch with the council direct online or through their.
Yes, but when you say online,
Yeah.
which department? Which department?
There is our website.
Well, I'm very
the
familiar with your
environment
website.
department.
So is that what is the address of that?
I
mean,
can
do you put in Merton Council Environment?
I on the record bit. I can get them for you, Hillary, and I'm happy for anyone. If anybody knows of any residents who think need assisted collections, take our newsletter, give them my phone number, and I
Because
can.
the normal
do
Merton
it online.
Council reporting one, that's not going to be the right one. Is it?
Yeah.
The second one is in our area there's quite a few maisonettes, and some of them the ground floor flat usually would own the front garden, so they have absolutely no legal duty to have wheelie bins for the upstairs flat. Now, in that case, is the upstairs flat entitled to apply for a pickup collection?
My understanding is that there will be an expectation that the 2 households will share the ground floor for all 4 wheel bins.
Yes, but
and
they can't because they don't own the ground. The ground is owned by the ground floor.
No, I'm aware
I think
of
there's
that.
an assessment made on each property. I don't know what the assessment has been made.
Yeah, so where the
So
resident...
they can apply for an assessment.
Yeah.
Again, they contact me, and I've spoken to people today who are in maisonettes where they've only been given 1 set of bins between the 2, and actually they've asked for extra bins. So yeah, we've got to try and make it work.
And the third question, coming back to the 140 litre bins, I actually spoke at the Sustainable Communities Overview and Scrutiny Panel in February. I read the agenda pack back to front, and in that report it was very clearly stated that there were 3 sizes of bins, 240, 180 and 140, and that the bin to be rolled out first would be the 180, but there would be the option to have a 140. And now you're telling us that, well, you don't know, possibly you'll look at it, and I think that's going back on what was agreed with Veolia, and that you shouldn't be just saying, well, we'll think about it, because as far as I'm aware there was no consultation afterwards that they would basically chuck out the 140 litre bins. And I actually spoke to Scott Edgar, and he said that I said, well, isn't it a waste for everybody to get a 180? And he said, well, it won't matter, because they'll pick up the 180, put them back into their store, and then they will be used over time, so there wouldn't be any waste of money. So can you answer that?
As I said, so the 140 is the same size in height as the 180, so that the trucks could take them. So with time, and I'll come back through Eleanor in terms of whether there's a definite time. With time, we will have discussions with residents about moving to a smaller size if they want to.
Why wasn't that done in the first place?
It's just lack of consultation.
We need economies of scale.
Oh, good, you get then over here. That's okay, Janet first.
Just a leave on filling them up though, is it?
You
It's
don't-
not an economy of scale. If people aren't using it to the full.
No, for introducing the system and trying to save money.
You could have
Just
had
on
Okay,
behalf
question,
of
yeah.
my neighbours who've got small babies, that
Yes.
they were asking if I could ask if, when you do the weekly food waste collection, whether there could be some kind of nappy bin collection on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Because keeping nappies for 2 weeks might not be great.
And I think the answer to that is no. And again, in other areas, in the north and other areas where they've had these bins for a long time, my big brother lived in Stafford with 3 young children in a bin, and he said actually it's fine. You get used to the fortnightly collection, and you can. He did actually say get used to it. He did notice that. And if those families, I imagine, for whom will be more likely to possibly request a larger bin if they're getting through a lot of nappies. But no, there's no option for a weekly.
No. The alternate week. So every week, someone will be at your front door to collect something. The food waste, the smelly stuff every week. The other on alternate weeks.
Sorry, you know you said that it's every contract 8 years.
Can we come back to the contract? I really want to clean.
Sorry, you mentioned it, so I've got to address it.
Yeah.
You said it's going to be for 8 years. Is that for the actual recycling bins as well, or just for the street cleaning? So we are stuck with this
whole
for 8 years. And but we can, if let's say there's a change of situation for the council, that can be changed around. Gone back.
Can we come back to the
It can be gone
and why do I should be idea?
Let's say, you know,
Let's say we fall out with Veolia.
I think, Jack, you say you had other questions from your neighbours as well. Was that the main one?
I think that's it.
Okay, great. So then Astrid, then Caroline, and the lady in front of you. Astrid first. Sorry, behind you.
Okay. Sorry, I hope this is a helpful question. When people move,
yes,
I find that with recycling, the problem is when they don't know the instructions.
Yes.
Because a new, so we need to make sure that when people move, arrive and that they get the instructions on how to do it. Otherwise, it'll all fall apart.
Yeah.
If they don't know what a blue bin is.
Yeah.
So it's just a point of that.
That is a useful point. So like I say, so everyone now will be getting their leaflet, which will be really clear about what's collected then. If you go online, you can put in your postcodes, and it will generate for you a personalised calendar of when your collections
might
will
not
be.
bother to do that. That's the one thing,
Yeah,
I think that's the point.
Yeah,
That is
useful. That is useful, and this is a high turnover area in Abbey in particular. So you're right, that might be a good time. And then Caroline and the lady in front.
Yes. Now, if we're exempted, do we just put everything into one black sack and just put it out as normal, and it'll be collected every week?
No, you do as you do now. You do
Yeah.
as you do now.
Fortnightly. So it'll only be fortnightly this time. But I mean, it doesn't matter about recycling. You can just put any old thing into the black bag.
Well, you have a bin. You can still get your bin, your recycling bin.
Yeah.
And you'll have a.
So you're saying people who live in flats, for example?
It's what you normally do now.
I mean, all I've got is just a black
before we
sack.
get confused, you do what you normally do now. No
Yeah,
change.
just put the black sack out, and I don't have to recycle any paper or bottles or all that stuff.
Don't you have a green bin? Don't you have a green bin?
No.
You don't have a green bin?
No, I've got no bins. I mean, I would do, I haven't got any.
Yeah, you should be given sites that are about recycling. So we can look into anyone here who's in flats and in a situation who's uncertain. We can double check with officers your request and find out.
One of the advantages was supposed to be to stop the litter flowing around the street. So we've still got the green bins with the plastic in, which is what flows around the streets.
Do we
have any lids for them? And
you will
also
have lids for those, yes.
steps. 2 bins.
The new ones will have lids.
No, only if you're new one. You have the green ones we're still using.
Yeah, if you order a new box, you will get a lid. Or weigh it down with wine bottles, which is what I do, and then I try and stop the plastic. It's the one, yeah. It's a legitimate concern, because that is indeed one of the reasons why we're putting it on here. We do think there's too much litter in streets at the moment, and there is evidence that a lot of that litter does, as you say, come from not just flowing away out of boxes, but from people putting their bin bags out and then being torn, and from boxes and then that being dispersed. So we really want this to reduce.
That's what the plastic goes in, isn't it?
The
stuff that blows around the street.
That will have bins. So eventually they'll all have bins.
Love your question. There were two.
Lids.
They will have lids. That's
yes.
Okay. So they're going to be delivered to us all.
If you order, If you order a new one, a new green bin, you will get a lid with it.
There are three things that people have raised.
I don't want any more.
Yeah, you can order a lid.
Get a lid.
When will that be, please? When will the lids be available? Because I've ordered a new box.
Yeah.
I've received a new box, and they told me it would come with a lid, and it has no lid.
So the lids will be very soon. Very soon.
Is that new?
Yes, that's new. Very soon.
They try and raise a question about street bins. There are a few issues that I do want to deal with. I want to deal with the bin first. So street bins, someone talked about bin sacks being put out on kind of Merton High Street I want to come back to, and issues about the contract we can come back to. But any other questions about the actual service?
Can you just throw your rubbish straight into the bin, or do you put it in a bag before you put it in the bin?
You can put it straight into the bin, but you should put it in a bag. It's obviously up
So
to
where's
you.
the recycling incentive in all of this? Where is the incentive for
You get
residents to
fined.
reduce what they throw away?
Well, okay, we want to encourage recycling.
So we have another bag now.
What? There's not any bag, no extra bag.
Martin has just said you put your rubbish in a bag before you put it in.
But that's
the
what
bin.
you do normally. Oh, okay, you don't. You don't need. Sorry. You don't.
In a bag for recycling.
Your newspapers. Newspapers
Newspapers just go straight in.
Straight in. Lady at the back's had her hand up for a long time. Sorry.
The flats that have been incorrectly. We live in a converted Victorian house with 5 flats, and you only delivered one set of bins because you treated our flat like a house. Flat like a house.
Let me know.
So when we called, obviously we've heard nothing back. When are you going to correct that?
Yeah, we will. We'll follow that.
Let me know. Which street's this?
Kings Road.
Kings Road. Okay, it's outside.
I don't want it to come 1st of October and you don't pick up my rubbish because you guys didn't do the right bits, right?
Yeah, I'm not technically your councillor, but I'm happy to look into it. So if you just drop me a line over at the end, make sure I've got your email, and I'll look at that. Yeah. Okay.
What about the garden bits? People who have contract.
That's going to continue as it
That's
is.
continue as it is.
Yes.
So again, if you put your postcode in and it comes up with your personalised calendar, if you pay for garden waste, it will be there and it'll tell you when your garden waste collection is. What's the
criteria for assisted collection?
It's a conversation. There's no test. There's no analysis. We're not going to come and see whether if you want an assisted collection service because you feel you need one for infirmity, disabled or whatever. We'll have that discussion and you will get it.
So there's no criteria. So anybody could.
There'll be a discussion about why you want, but we're not going to have an assessment.
One of the criteria that you don't have, you have to live in your own, or live with somebody else who can't help you. Because if you do, then it wouldn't be fair to. Yeah. So as you say, everybody could.
The other question is also a bit about disability, and I'm aware that there's a lot of people with sight impairment, or elderly people with mobility difficulties, getting along the pavements when there are these huge wheelie bins that haven't been put back into someone's garden because they're at work. Is that not being? I mean, I'm sure economies of scale and all the money that you're saving is the only reason, but I think it's really important that as a community we think about how the vulnerable people get past, walk on, with prams, pushchairs. And these bins will be left out on the pavement while people are at work.
So we're asking Veolia quite firmly, it's in the contract, that those bins will be returned inside the curtilage of the gardens. They're not to be left on the curtilage.
They will be put back in the garden.
I said they won't go into your front garden, but I think they can leave them.
On the curtilage, no. The resident can leave them just before their front gate inside their garden, and that's where the operatives need to. That's where the operatives need to return them.
Yeah, you can try to leave from your. Emma, sorry, you had a. Sorry,
I've got 4 questions, but they're all sort of linked.
Great, that's fine.
So you mentioned about the recycling of the paper and card, and you said obviously now it's not going to get wet. There will be sold. But it'll be sold and they'll get the money from that. Who gets the money? Is that the council or is that Veolia? Where I live is round the back from where the delivery sites are, where all the bins are stored. We haven't got ads yet. So having spoken to the people that are delivering, and we said, oh right, you're doing all of our bit at the same time. They said, no, we don't find out until the morning where we're delivering to. He said, so we could be doing one road this side, or maybe just half the road,
and then we get told to go to the other side of the borough. So there's no consistency that people get them delivered. So what happens when the bins don't get delivered when this service starts? Can we still stick our rubbish out until they eventually get round to them?
All be delivered for this.
Everyone will get them. Yes.
If
If you haven't got them from us by then, we're not going to.
My bins haven't been delivered yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Right, so the other bit is, because I obviously lived on an estate, the estate bins, I'm waiting for their house bins, but the estate bins, they have mixed recycling bins, which is not changing. They're staying exactly how they are. Households are changing to this system. It seems to me to defeat the object of not changing that as well. Is that going to change? I
think estates have had different arrangements over a number of years. There's some estates at the moment that get 2 collections a week because of historical arrangements.
They're not separating. What you want us to do is separate out recycling. Where there isn't separated recycling on the wasting, the recycling, they all go in together on estate bins, which seems to me then defeat the object of not doing that as well.
The analysis we've received.
So that's what I'm saying. Is that going to happen?
We can look into that. I didn't realise that was saying
But it's different arrangements. Some estates in this borough will still be a weekly waste collection because of.
So I could do without my wheelie bins and just stick it in the estate bins at back. Which I expect some people will do, which then means that theirs are going to get more work for them, more over. And the last one is when I spoke to Viola about the masonette, not the masonettes, the flats above shops and putting their rubbish out. They said that everyone should have black bags issued to them from the council. They're like the red bags or pink bags or whatever colours they are. And they should have enough for the year from the council. And they shouldn't be any black bags on the streets, and they will start fining people. So I want to know if that is going to happen. I know you said it will take a couple of weeks or months for you to settling in. What is the cut-off period for issuing fines?
That was one of the earliest questions people were asking about is fines starting.
So we're going to give people plenty of time and also have discussions with people where it's not quite right or where there's still rubbish next to the wheel bin, for example. So we'll have those discussions, but we're certainly not fining people in the first month or 2. I don't know whether that'll stretch to 3 months, but 8 weeks we feel is quite enough for everything to be actually settled. But we're not in the business of finding people. We want a discussion with people so we get it right. The 64,000 houses that qualify for the wheel bin service, if you predicate it on how Sutton are doing, that have moved to the wheel bin service, their recycling has shot up to about 50%. Ours is at 37%.
47.
So we want to get to 45%, and out of the 82,000 households, if we talk about the 64,000 that qualify for the wheel bins, we think that'll add immensely to the recycling levels of this borough.
The more we recycle, the more we save.
Black bins. What do we do with that, please?
Sorry. Okay.
The black bins.
If you've got an existing black bin yourself.
Yeah, because they're really difficult to recycle. They're really difficult.
Yeah.
So they're all going to end up.
So we're looking at collecting that for you.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're looking.
What are you going to do with that? Though?
Yeah, we're looking at collecting those for you.
Sort of, what do you call it? You can't put it in recycling very easily.
Well, that's for the system to deal with. I don't know what Viola will do with them.
That should have been considered in the process.
Well, you can't stop it because we're worried about what to do with people's individual bins. We're moving to these wheel bins, which will immensely increase recycling levels, especially paper and cardboard and food waste and the other stuff.
Millions. Oh God! All right.
Thank you. Let's let it back. There's a couple of things about we haven't heard from the Margaret.
Yeah, I have a question about general waste bin. It will be collected every other week.
Yes.
So in the winter time, I can understand. In the summer, when the weather is really hot, it's already very smelly.
So your food waste will be collected every week. That's the smelly stuff.
Even general waste is also smelly.
But there will be a strong lid on it. Don't worry.
Don't worry, everyone.
I'm sure we both use that.
Can I just say, 90% of other boroughs do this. Please, if you have any relatives, if you know of anyone who lives in another borough with a wheel bin service, please speak to them. Our understanding from other boroughs is that within 3 months the system settles down, increase in recycling, people get used to their wheel bins and actually do like the system as it beds in. And that change is difficult, I know, but it will work because it works in other boroughs.
Everyone I know has got this, absolutely detests this.
Okay, it's not the same as everyone else's experience. I'm really sorry.
Sutton experience is not working. The Sutton experience is not working, and they've had the wheelies for almost more than a year and a half now.
Sutton have had wheelie bins for the last 20 years.
No, they haven't.
They have had.
Under Veolia for a year and a half.
They've had Veolia for a year and a half. But Sutton have had wheelie bins a lot longer. But obviously they went to the new system.
We speak to people. We know people in Sutton.
Yeah.
So do I.
Yeah. Okay, so we've had it for a year. Can you guarantee that we will have a better experience than Sutton?
I think Sutton was rolled out very badly. I think there has been lessons learned from their rollout in April last year in terms of the issues in terms of the collection of bins. And there was issues in Sutton. I think everybody recognises there was issues in Sutton, but we have learned the lessons of that because Sutton decided to implement it at the start of their contract in April 2017. And Sutton did not start well, but it has settled down a hell of a lot now, Sutton.
There's a lady here, sorry, who's had her hand up for a long time, yes.
Oh, I just wanted to ask about if I qualify for one of the slimmer bins, in time, do you know whether the wheel axle measurement would be the same as the one I've got now? Because I'm thinking of employing a builder to take down part of my wall at the front in order that I can get the big bins out into the pavement. I don't want to do that. Because if it was thinner bins but with the same measurement across the axle, there's no point, it will be no use to me anymore. Help to me.
That's a factual question that I can find out, but I don't have to hand. If at the end you kind of write it next to you, if you've written your name at the back, write that question down and I'll make sure I get back to you.
Compensating this lady.
Sorry?
Merton be compensating this lady.
Why not?
Why not?
We're having to reorganise our gardens for you.
Yes.
So where's our cutting our rate for doing that?
Sorry, they get back to them for a while.
We've heard from other people.
Okay, so if we could just listen.
Other people with wheelie bins. Some people overfill them, and next thing they know, especially if this happens after a fortnight, the island will say, we won't empty that because it's over full. What's going to happen about that?
So as Stephen said, we said during there will be a bedding in time, and we do realise initially people might get the wrong week, do something like that, and they might have to leave an extra bag alongside their bins. And for the first few weeks, a month, that is to be expected, and we're not going to be going around slapping on fines. Once everyone's past that period, we're not expecting, and we've had discussions, and people have asked creative questions, and we've looked into whether they need a bigger bin and other issues. Then our aim is not to try and stop those collections.
I know you've decided upon fines, but what other fines?
Have we decided upon fines?
No, there's no decision on fines at all. They would be in line with what the main fly tipping fine is £80 at the moment. If it's a major fly tip that ends up at the magistrate's court, by these cowboy builders, for example, that could be £400. But as I said, we're not out to find people. We're out to work with people and talk to people through their issues that they raise. And if they've got a lot in the standard wheel bin and the lid is open, we'll have that discussion about whether they want a larger one.
Gentlemen at the back, yes.
I want to ask about what kind of procedures you have in place to monitor biological performance, because in the same way that you've looked at other council and borough around the country actually to see the performance of how successful or bad actually the result of implementing will be in a bid. So in the same way you said, the recycle will increase and all the positive side and economy of scale and all of that. I just want to know now in the same way what you're going to do to prevent all the things that went wrong in our council. So what kind of procedures have you put in place from day one and how you address that? And when you say we're going to have a discussion, how does it work? I mean, are you going to give me your phone number? I call you? I mean, how does it work? How does it work?
With the individual resident. So the operatives who turn up.
Correct. So the question are two. One, the procedures you have put in place from October to monitor how Viola is performing. So that's question number one, which should be on a weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly, yearly basis. Right? Another question is when you say we're going to have discussion in month 6, 9, or 1 year, whatever time it is, what kind of formal discussion is going to take place? Who are going to be involved in the discussion? How are you going to communicate when discussion is going to happen? So this is kind of operational questions.
So we have in terms of discussions with individual residents about issues that are coming up, that'll be with the individual operatives. So the team that will be working on your road will be the same team, which is good. So you get into a relationship, you know who they are. So
how do you want to introduce themselves because I don't know them? How are they going to introduce themselves because I don't know them?
There'll be when you get your wheel bin, there'll be a pack about.
There is the pack. I already called because the delivery was
you
wrong.
Can call us. You can call us.
But I called you, but I got nothing back yet. So
I'm sorry you haven't got anything back. But you call us or you get to know your operatives. Then if there's any issues, any problems, they will contact you in terms of spillage and the lid isn't closing, or you're putting the wrong stuff in the wrong box. So they'll have that conversation with you. Now, I don't know whether they're collecting from you first thing in the morning or afternoon, but they'll try and get in touch with you. They'll leave a card in your letterbox with a phone number for you to contact them. So there's that. In terms of performance indicators, we do have staff, contract manager, who oversees the contract for us, who works for us at Merton Council. We will use the traditional way of looking at these issues, which is key performance indicators, that we will get on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis that give the performance indicators of the cleanliness of the borough, of the collection rates, of miscollections as well. So all that is in place as we speak for the current system, but kicks in for the new system. Key performance indicators that will be made public as well.
How often? Sorry, how often?
I think at the moment we get them quarterly, but it could be that the officers get them.
We get them more frequently.
They'll get them more frequently.
We see our figures down frequently.
So that we will be strong. We will be tough. We will. I've talked about the positives. I get your point, sir. There will be negatives in terms of Viola not performing right. We need to make sure we're on top of that, and we have staff whose job it is centred into areas to make sure that Viola perform.
And if you're able to help us with reporting issues, then that gives us evidence about
Is there a direct line, or is it in the pack? Is there a phone number?
There should be a phone number in the pack. Yeah.
So because I already had a bad experience with even before starting, because as I said, I didn't have the correct number of wheelie bins, and we called them. And we haven't heard anything back, and this has been 10 days. So if that's the starting point of how you want to assess performance, it's not a great start.
Well, I apologise for that. I will take that on board. I'll have a word with you to why you haven't had a response for 10 days. That is wrong.
Yeah, so confused about this. We've been very patient.
I just want to clarify. You said earlier on that old bins that we've got, of whatever description they are, will be taken away by your good self.
We're looking at a system. We would urge you to deal with them yourselves. We would urge you to use them for another purpose if you can, a wormery or composting. But we're looking to devise a system whereby we collect them from.
Right. Well, because the other night at another meeting similar to this, we were told quite categorically they were not being collected or taken away.
Yeah, I think
quite categorically.
We haven't been listening quite a lot to the feedback.
That meeting, I walked away from there and I thought, what the hell do I do with the bins?
We've had a lot of that, and we are looking at that, and we are looking to, this is all, it costs money, we're looking to devise a system of collecting them from you.
Yeah, but this should have been sorted out at the beginning. I mean, this has been going for years that you're going to do these things, because obviously the contracts and everything else, and who's doing what and everything else. And you've got to the point now where you're saying, we're looking at it.
Yeah, well,
and you're looking at other things.
We've got strong evidence that a lot of people.
Boroughs will have done this. 90% of the other boroughs, you must have taken learnings from them.
Yeah,
and clearly don't.
Lots of them shifted a long time ago.
Yeah. So what we've had is evidence that a lot of people have already got wheel bins.
Yeah.
And we've been surprised by the level of households by the number of households that have wheel bins. People have been saying, "Why can't you collect my old wheel bin?" And we're responding to it.
Well, the bottom line is that you've got this wide bit at the front. Why the hell they couldn't just go to where everybody have got their bins from? Is like your home base, B&Q or wherever. Yeah. They're all bog standard, manufactured by probably the same people that produce these ones. Why couldn't you model it on the same size as them? And then people that have already got bins could just keep them and you wouldn't have to give us any.
I don't think that was possible.
I think it's assessment on the waste that is being generated across the borough, because some boroughs have even gone for a larger size
But
than
where
Merton. We
again,
went for
where
the
is
middle
the
size.
incentive from you to get us to make less waste? What are you doing on the commercial waste? Tell us how you're managing supermarkets to stop producing stuff that we have to throw away.
That's a good
Yeah,
question.
that's-
Second
that's-
issue,
that's-
there's other
Did you
people
think
who
about
haven't
providing
asked
for
questions yet.
composters for us?
There are a couple of other people who haven't asked questions yet, including this lady over here.
I wanted to ask a question, but also to make a statement. My question is, as we know they're coming in from the 1st of October, what do we have to do? Where do we have to put them? Are we moving our wheelie bins? Are we moving our other bins? And the other thing was to make a statement about what's happening at the moment. When we do have our rubbish collected, the trucks seem to stay in the middle of the road, even when there's a big space that they can actually move into. I live in a cul-de-sac, so actually I'm stuck behind this truck, could be up to 5 minutes, and then if I go along there's another truck there. So can these trucks sort of be more sympathetic to when you're looking at quality, and are they getting fined for those sort of things?
Where do you live, if you don't mind me asking?
Lebanon.
Okay.
So I do know that the owner had purchased trucks that are slightly slimmer so that they get round. I take your point. I think what happens is they have these huge yellow things that they put everything in, and then all that will stop. So that should speed up the system, and they should drive moderately through the road without stopping at one place, as you say, even though there's space to park inside. But they wait there for 5 minutes. You say that should all stop, because there won't be this ability to chuck everything in a big yellow one and then wheel that onto the truck. These trucks are made for this system.
Surely that would make it longer though, because they'll have to stop at each property to wheel it out.
There is a longer time than the
That's
existing
what they make it
collection.
longer
There is a
than
longer
quicker. They'll have
time
to wheel
to
it
go
out from
around.
the property, put them on the truck, wait for the truck to wheel it up,
Yes, yeah.
put it down, then wheel it back to the. Obviously, the truck's going to take longer than
But
it
once
currently
every,
does.
but once every 2 weeks. That's the way the machine comes in. And you had a factual question about kind of what happens when. Have you had your bin?
No.
Okay, so when you get your bin, like I say, you'll get a pack which goes through this really clearly, and I flicked through it yesterday. It says literally like on this day it'll be this, 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 and this, and tells you where to put them and what to put in what. I'm on Grove Road and I haven't quite had mine yet as well, so I imagine they're going to do Grove in the Burnham, or finish off Grove in the Burnham next, I hope, soon. And once you've looked through that, if you do have any further questions, drop me a line, give me a call.
Should be delivered
But what
next
you're
week.
saying is if we have to move it to the front of our property, or then they will put it back
Yes.
where we've left it, and it won't be on the street.
No, it should not be on the street. And we want to know if it is on the street. There are cameras on the vehicles, both for safety of residents, on all 4 corners of the vehicle, both for safety of operatives, and for us seeing how the operation is working. So that should help immensely. But you leave it within the curtilage of your front garden, and that's where it should be returned. We will not put up with reams of wheel bins along the pavements, as the lady said, with regard to those in prams, those who are not sighted as well as we are, and disabled people.
Is sweeping frequency?
Yeah, can we come on to, again, I'm really happy to do with street cleaning and other issues. Just quickly on, see if there's any more questions about how this works. Jackie, you haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I didn't really plan to speak. I wanted to come along to listen. I'm a resident in Cannon Hill, and I'm Labour's parliamentary candidate for Wimbledon. I wanted to say thank you to everyone who came along, because I believe everyone who came along because they cared desperately about this constituency and where they live, and are to be congratulated, because rubbish is a huge, huge problem, and I think we need to really make sure that we take everybody along with us. I want to step back. I think that I have a great deal of sympathy for the council, because I don't believe anybody would point to this Viola model and go, isn't it brilliant, let's go and do this. I think we've been forced into it because we do not have the funding. The Tories have cut our funding so badly, we don't have enough money. So as a result, this scheme supposedly will save money. Now, I'm slightly worried, because very often when we privatise things to save money, they end up being very costly indeed. So, I want to fight for government that will actually end privatisation. And ideally, when we get a Labour government, we will take back control of these local services so we can build a rubbish collection that's built on the needs of the residents. Sorry,
this is about this, right?
No,
this is a campaign.
This is a campaign.
So my question is, can we, in terms of, we'll hold the contract to account, and we've got things that we can do if we are able to break them, and then actually how we can get out of this contract when we can properly fund a rubbish service that puts the needs of the residents before the needs of private companies.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. We come back to the contract. The gentleman at that back hasn't spoken yet. I know, but we have lots of questions.
I covered this earlier, but I apologise.
That's fine.
I live in a block of flats on the corner.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we're exempted because we're a block of flats. So ours is the same. At the moment, we've got an off-street car park, and I've got our black bins and recycling bins on the side of the off-street car park. Now, if we sell that car park, it's no longer our property. So where would I then put our bins?
I don't know. Is the car park up for bins?
No. At the moment, we put them on the side of the car park wall. We've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
But if we sell that car park, which we're hoping to do,
we
can't put our bins in there anymore.
Okay.
You will have you will have a discussion with the Veolia about where to put your bins.
I can, and I'm your councillor. Drop me a line, and if that becomes an issue, we can. Well, I'll see you. Sorry, you've been very patient.
So I wanted to ask again about the contract.
Okay, should we? Yeah,
Is that okay?
Let's have you. Have we done?
Please, I've got my dossier here about various things for individuals, which is not appropriate, and some of us want to hear about the major impact that the new school is going to have on our children.
Okay.
Can you get on to that soon? We've been doing this for more than an hour.
Yeah, because as a local councillor, this is the issue. I've had one contact about the school in the past month, and I've had many contacts about the bins. And as has become clear here, this is a main issue people want to hear about. I just want to quickly introduce Mike Brunn, who's a cabinet member for lots of things. There we go. We've covered all major issues. We were just trying to see if there are any final factual issues about how the new service works. And then there were some questions that people had about Wheelie more generally and street cleaning and the contract. So any final questions about the service? Caroline?
Yes. Now, what happens if you're in a multi-occupancy property or you're on an estate or flats or whatever? Now, suppose somebody commits a transgression, are you going to fine all the residents in that property, or are you going to be able to find out who actually did do it?
Well, there's two things when I'll pass over to homes of multiple occupation. They're the legal ones that we know about, so we'll engage with those. And obviously, homes of multiple occupation that are illegal, if we find out about them and they are bad, health and safety wise, we will clamp down on those and try and regulate.
But how are you going to know which individual actually did it?
Yeah. So I'll pass over to Mike, but there will be a discussion with one of the occupiers, whoever is first that comes out. But obviously, we will hopefully find out who the transgressor is. Mike, that's a good question.
Yeah. Sorry, my apologies for lateness. I've been at a meeting that Stephen left earlier to get here, a similar one in Gravely Ward. With houses of multiple occupancy, I don't know what's been covered so far, but where we know that they're a house of multiple occupancy and we know the landlord, then, as Stephen says, we'll be dealing with the landlord largely to say that someone in your property is not complying. But we have enforcement officers who are not heavy-handed. Our enforcement officers, I've been out with one of them only last week looking at fly tips around the borough and rummaging through bags and looking for addresses and the like. But they will be in discussion with the tenants in that block or that house, that building, just to try and find a pathway through, to see who it is, see who needs some guidance about how to recycle, and depends what's going on. I mean, are you envisaging people putting like the wrong things in the wrong bins, or?
Well, yes, that and other things, because obviously I wouldn't want to be fined, and especially if it's not me that's actually
the first
committed
point of contact
the error, as it were.
It's mainly going to be about discussion and having negotiation discussion with all the people there So just talking to people saying, are you happy with, do you understand what the service is? Do you understand what goes in what box, which container, and just see where it goes. I couldn't tell what the outcome of that would be, but hopefully it'll be resolved by that sort of negotiation to start with.
Right, so you wouldn't just automatically fine everybody?
No.
There.
It won't be heavy-handed like that, because we need to find out who. I don't want to use the word culprit, because it may just be misguided. Their intentions or their understanding of what the system is, or their motivation. But nevertheless, we'll try and find a way through.
Does that thing get washed, or because some people aren't as fastidious about cleaning out yogurt pots and things like that?
I mean, I would always advocate cleaning that out when you've finished your washing up. Just use the water that's left to wash out.
You can't expect everyone to do that.
But I would hope so, because if it's not clean, it will attract rats and foxes and cats.
Do they wash it?
It'll all be washed there.
I
Yes.
just wanted to know.
It doesn't have to be clean, and the advice says it doesn't have to be. But I would advocate that we should, because you don't want it being rummaged through.
Yeah, and that was a point that Jill will be making, that we can try and come back to, is what we're doing more broadly to try and increase recycling rates. Quickly, whilst you're here, I was told that both bins go out on the same day, and then on the others, and then somebody said they've read something different. And I was wondering,
one week, this will be the collection. It will be general waste, paper and cardboard, and your food waste. That's 1 week. Plus, also you can put out clothing on top of the bins as well. You can put out clothing in a tied bag. Those, because there's containers on the side of the vehicles that will take clothing as well. Paired shoes can be put in there as well. So that's an enhancement to the service, because we're finding no one's saying you shouldn't go to the charity shops you've chosen. Carry on doing that if you do that. But there are some people who do put clothing, discarded clothing, they think it's worthless or useless, into the rubbish. We're trying to take that out of the waste stream. The other thing that you can put out is batteries. So if you put batteries out in maybe a sandwich bag, something clear is visible that there are batteries on top as well, they will be taken and kept separate, because we don't want those being put in the ground or go to the energy exchange incinerator. So that is a service. If it's in a plastic bag, that plastic bag, we're assured, will be recycled as well. So.
Should the bags be tied or not?
As well.
No, sorry, someone said the clothing bag should be tied, yes, on top, yes.
What about DIY stuff like paint and all that sort of glue?
They can go in the general waste.
So you will all take that away as well?
Yeah, we're not talking about industrial quantities of paint and loads of it. It's just the tail end of a tin you've used go in here. Otherwise, take it to the dump.
I haven't got a car, so
right,
I wouldn't be able
to
get
go in here.
there.
But if you're using, I mean, I can't. There's not going to be huge amounts of paint. I would have thought.
Well, I've got about 10 tins in my garage.
Okay.
More questions about the service, and then I promise we will move on to the other the wider contract.
You've just told us that the bins should go out on the same day.
Yes.
But in our leaflet, in my chart, at the back of the leaflet, it very clearly says that the black and the navy lid are alternate weeks.
No, these go up the same way. If you look at, I would bring it to me by all means. I proofread them all. Not every individual, but the substantially the same. And then at the back, it's got the tick chart showing these are definitely the same week as that. And then the other week, you've got your box and the food again. But that's definitely the way it is. One of the reasons for that is because it will be self-regulating. Because if we did put them out alternate weeks, we fear that people will be putting their general waste in the recycle. So that's the way of doing that. And we as residents get £70 a tonne for paper and card at the moment. So that's a benefit to us collectively, because it reduces the price of the contract and means that more money can go to other services.
I'm reading here, it says those two bins every 2 weeks,
yes,
both on the blue and the black.
Same week, yes.
It's the same week.
Same week.
So if it's the Tuesday, comes out the same day.
Yes. Mm-hmm. If you have a garden waste service,
every week. Every week. Food waste
is every week. Food waste is every week. And also with the food waste, you can, if you don't have much food waste, you can just put out the small caddy. You don't have to put out the large one if you're not using much. And if you haven't got one of these, because you have one of the old basket ones, you can request one of these online, or just give me your details and I'll order one for you. The advantage of this one is that you don't have to use the green bags anymore. That's, for whatever reason, Merton has dropped off in its recycling of food. Sutton started the service last year on the 1st of April, never had a recycling of food across the borough before. Same sort of size borough. on average, Sutton residents recycle or put about 7.5 kilos of food waste per month out. Merton, which has had the service for a lot longer, is 3 kilos per household per month. So it's much lower. So it's now, one of the reasons is because people had felt that when the borough stopped giving the green bags anymore, that they would stop. Because it was a basket they had in the house, they didn't want the food eking out, they didn't want to pay for them in Sainsbury's. You don't need to do that anymore. You can order one of these, line it with newspaper, that's absolutely fine, and some newspaper mixed in with the food waste is great. And then tip it into here, or if this is all you've got, put this out. This is lockable as well. It's the same as the other one. But if you've got this one, if your old one keeps opening, because it's old and loose, again, give me your details, or you can request online, go away and request online. You request a new one. These are tighter. They've got more of it. You can feel it click into place. That it's not going to be opened as easily. But the food waste, smelly stuff every week, right through.
The green bags though, if you have a big one.
You don't have to use the green bag at all.
For none of them?
No.
Okay.
If you prefer to wrap it in newspaper, that's absolutely fine.
Brilliant. I didn't know that. I've got an old one, so I'm going to request a new one of those.
If we've got old ones, those bins, how do we get rid of the old ones if we have those new ones?
Unfortunately, these are not recyclable, so you can put them in here. In the general waste.
It's a one-off. Yeah.
It's a one-off. We've got no option for that because it's not. The sort of materials that make these are at the end of end of the plastic life. The stuff that's in these is recycled plastic to the limit, if you like.
So the ones that we've got inside, the little plasticky ones with the wire, they'll go in there as well, will they?
They can go in here. Yeah. Sorry.
I don't want to go off tangent related to the waste issue. Merton do full bulky item collections through the year, and I just wondered whether it was worth saying that.
You could put it.
It would be nice if people used that service rather than just dumping it on the street.
Yes, I mean it could go in here, but you're right. You could, but I would say bundle it up into a box or something to say that it's one item. Yeah, that'd be fine.
And as Jackie said, it's great that you're all here, and you're all here because you care about these issues. Please spread these messages to your neighbours and other people that you're speaking to that are confused about this and think that their food's only going to be every other week and aren't going to bother with this. We want to increase food recycling. We want to increase the recycling amounts. We want to reduce the amount of refuse. And it is a hard message to get across. And so, anything that you can do to help, and anything we can do to help you.
What you're saying is you can have these bigger bins for more rubbish. I haven't heard anything that says how we can reduce what we generate.
Okay, well, I've had lots of households say, I'm concerned about getting filled too quickly, to which my answer is, well, the whole point is that you recycle more.
Yeah. Sutton had the service launched on the 1st of April last year. They were one of the lower recycling boroughs in London. We had the South London Waste Partnership, which is Croydon, Sutton, Merton and Kingston working together on this contract, and Sutton already believe they've exceeded 50%. So within 18 months, they've turned a bad situation into a much better one. And then we still want to strive for more. So the idea is that we recycle more. We have to recycle more. But we also need to tackle source of that. Because now, unless we lobby our MPs to say that we want a deposit scheme on bottles and cans and plastic, and that's what we need to.
No good
telling
us, the end user.
Yes, I agree.
When we have to buy all that stuff, pay for it in the supermarkets, come home with more apples and pears and whatever else that we don't really need.
Right.
Why didn't you think about providing for the people who do live in the leafy greens hot composters at the end of every road?
Right. Well, we had a composting scheme back in the 90s. We gave out 1,000 of those. Some of those were successfully used, other ones were not. And but that option is not around at the moment. We're looking. This food waste goes towards generating heat and power, and then it's pulped, and in the end it's fertiliser. So that's what that's used for. The paper all goes through to UK-based recycling units. So that it's getting back into the stream there. The plastic, glass and cans, that has to be sifted out and sorted. Actually, the revenue to the borough is quite low on that. In fact, it costs, some of those items cost to get rid of. But it's cost less than landfill, which is why local authorities have been pushed in that direction. But we will want to do that anyway. 70% of all plastic that's ever been produced in all time still exists. That is not acceptable. We cannot tackle that as a borough here. We have to deal with what we've got. But we can lobby our members of parliament. If we were still in the EU, we could be lobbying there. But we need to be pushing for the source to be taken out.
So what are the bins made of?
I say,
There's no
recycled plastic.
we're happy to speak to you separately about any other ideas you've got about what we should be doing to try and increase recycling rates.
Integration
Very
can
happy.
help.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One of the ways I've drastically reduced the waste, and I've, normally down to a carrier bag full of rubbish, are these street bins where you can recycle as you go along. I want to ask if those are going to remain, and I hope they're not going to be play party politics, because the other side put them on the streets. They're very useful.
Of the mix that's in those bins is poor. We can, when we recycle, the recycling sites will tolerate 5% contamination. And what happens with those, and I've had having a constant monitoring the one outside Collier's Wood Tube Station in particular, because there's a bin outside there that is packed to overflowing every night and most mornings. And it's all sorts of things packed in the wrong containers, filled up there. You walk just a few metres either way, there are 8 bins that are usually empty in that area.
But does that mean we're going to have to be done away with our
No, what I'm saying is that don't rely on the quality of what's recycled there. There's no, we will have bins where bins are needed, but I wouldn't rely on the fact that you're putting it in a recycle there, that it will be recycled. Because it could be, if it gets to the depot and then it's rejected as part of a bigger batch, then the whole lot has to go to landfill. So we're actually, if we contaminate our recycling, we're in danger of not getting any benefit from it.
But we still need street bins.
Oh, I don't dispute that at all, but what I'm saying is don't rely on the quality of the recycling there. We need street bins in the right places across the borough, yes.
Yeah, if we're going to increase recycling rates, it's for everyone doing better through our home recycling, which is higher quality, as we've been hearing about. Thanks.
So I just wanted to, you said that Veolia are going to put away the bins after collecting rubbish. So lots of people will go out to work or work shifts or whatever. To me, if they don't put them back where I would put them, it's an open invite to burglars. Oh look, there's no one in there. So is anyone going to liaise with the police to see whether there is an increase in a burglary in areas and it may be due to bins not being put back and someone can see.
That's a point, and I mean this is my 9th ward meeting, where public meeting where I've been addressing this issue and taking concerns, and that is a regular concern that comes up. The contract is that Veolia should return it to where it's taken from. We need to work with you to help us to make sure that happens, because we can't enforce it if people are not telling us it's not happening. So if it's not happening, tell us. Tell your ward councillors and we'll report it and we'll follow that through. Because we know from experience that already people are saying, well, they just chucked my green box back in. They just, this ends up all over the place. It's a much, it's now, they may be the exception, but it's been happening, and I don't deny that, and it's not good enough. But when there's so much more visible, we need to make sure that it's right, and we need to be pressing them. Veolia are not doing this. They win contracts across London and across other parts of the country because they deliver. And we need to make sure they deliver for us and they don't give us a second-rate service. So together with you, we can do that. We can achieve that. But we do, ward councillors get regular police statistics on crime and crime levels and burglaries. So we would be seeing that anyway as part of the normal panel discussions we have with them.
There's a question at the back and then the lady here.
Yes,
Mike, do you know how much the bins cost?
The bins cost, I think it's something in the region of 1.4 million, 1.6 million. And their lifetime, that's over their lifetime. It's a capital cost, so it's not part. So the revenue savings that maybe Stephen mentioned earlier, 1.6 million a year in the first year and 2 million in the future years, that takes account of the capital cost of this written off over time. Okay. The same as the vehicles are owned by Merton, and they are.
The vehicles are not owned by Veolia.
No, they're our vehicles.
So
well, it's part.
Who's adapted them? Because you said we were changing this to suit the new vehicles picking up. So whose idea was it to adapt?
Well, it's part of the package. I mean, Veolia have vehicles they use in other areas. They've got the cameras on them. They've got the weight scales in them. They've got the electronic system. Yeah. But we, as part of our capital programme, have funded those vehicles and the bins.
So we've bought the trucks, we own the trucks.
To be honest, whether it's a lease or own, that's a technical question. I can come back to you on with a specific answer on that.
Right.
Yeah.
That seems
My-
like
my-
expenditure. Go on, yeah.
Well, I mean, the vehicles are going to come from somewhere anyway.
Yeah, but we're paying, how much, I think is the contract worth 155 million? Is that right?
Over its lifetime, something like that.
Well, 8 years, I hope
It's
it's
8
not
years,
lifetime.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
155 million over to 8 years.
But by going into that, we're saving 2 million a year.
So how long does that, someone do the math, how long did that take to make that saving?
So we make a saving of 16 million over 155 million.
You're throwing figures at me that I'd need to write down and come back to you on, right?
You just said that.
Well, yeah, but you'd need to specify whether that 155 million is across 4 boroughs or across one.
No, it's one.
That's just 155.
We'll get the stuff to you.
I can get the answers to those questions, yes.
No, it's more, it just worries me a little bit that you don't know. Why don't you know? You should know. I mean, this is a huge contract we just signed up for 8 years, and you guys don't have the numbers.
We are talking about
If I had this as a job, I'd be trying.
All the numbers are in papers that have been.
Someone must know.
I haven't got those papers with me now. That's not a question that's come up at any other meeting so far, so I'm sorry for not being briefed on that to give you that answer now. I take the details afterwards and I'll come back to you.
There's questions here, and then we'll do any final questions. We can move on to general questions about Wheelie. I think that's coming up anyway, and then we'll try and get some time to talk, give an update about the school because it's been a bit delayed anyway. We need to be out of here by 4. So
afterwards, I'm more than happy to take details of anyone who perhaps wants to talk about the assisted collection scheme or hasn't at the moment got their boxes and wants to order a food caddy, large or small or both, or a box. Give me your details and I'll make sure that happens afterwards. I don't want to type the meeting now.
And there are a couple of things that I know I shut down earlier that I'm happy to bring up again if they're not coming up in the questions now. But this
So on to the contracts with Veolia. So we're tied into an 8-year contract with this company. They're going to stay in place for 8 years. We know this to be the case. So what you've promised is that they will be held to account and we will receive discounts for poor performance. So from a taxpayer perspective, that's incredibly important that we know that this is happening. Now all of us are frustrated because we know that when the time comes, if there's litter on the streets, if there are people not picking up their rubbish, photos, but we don't have any feedback. So what we need is some real commitment from this contractor that they will be held to account. So what's the system you're going to put in place so that we're not all shouting into the abyss?
Yeah.
We're actually getting a response to these concerns.
And as councillors, we all do a lot of reporting, so we have very
why
much
this is
sympathy
all
with you about the
happening
system.
because people don't believe that's going to happen. So that's something positive you could do, and it would transform your relationship with the borough, with people, because you'd feel like you were being listened to.
Yeah.
Right.
So
There are reporting figures on miscollections and on streets that are under par. That sort of information is reported through. That's being crunched through at the moment because whenever someone reports a street that's not been swept, one of our officers has to go out and verify that because that's the way the contract works. They then report that to Veolia. They have 24 hours to put that right. Then one of our officers has to go out and inspect it again.
Right.
So if they rectify it within the 24 hours, that's not a default. That's not an issue because they put it right. They weren't to know that it was there necessarily because it could have happened in a street that they have swept previously.
Sorry, my question is not whether or not they do it. My question is, how do you let us know?
Well, there'll be an annual report that will come through to Screwing.
That's what's insufficient. We need to hear that someone solved our problem. It could be a text, it could be a weekly email saying these were the numbers of issues that were reported, this is how many got resolved, this is how many were rectified, this is how many that weren't. So there's some accountability there. This is the problem. It can be easily done. Veolia should provide that data to you anyway. So why not just tell us? No annual report is going to satisfy that requirement. So
I've reported in the last couple of months. I've reported over 30 fly tips.
I'm sure you have. I'm sorry, that's
no,
not.
but I just used the ordinary. And my evidence was that they went.
But
they were
that's
cleared.
the point, is that we don't get that report. So
But you
we
can
want to see it, not just the
I didn't get a
councillors.
report. I just
we
see
use
it.
the same system.
But we're not getting the data. So why not make sure that we get these reports? Your issue has been fixed, and people will feel happy.
Won't you see it? Like,
You see-
reported it.
You may,
But you don't know whether it was
not.
you or somebody else might have reported
Your
it.
neighbour went and sorted it out, or it's just different. You know, the fox didn't come this week.
Oh.
There needs to be some accountability.
I completely agree, and it's something I've been asked for as new councillor as well.
Okay, great.
Could the reports be given at the community forums? Would it be in that
That might be that way of doing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
We do to an extent, but yeah, okay.
Because there's more wards, and there could be several wards together. Yes.
But also the system you've got on the actual website is really laborious.
Yes, exactly.
You have to put your name and address in, the site, and it's...
And it doesn't remember any of it,
No,
and yes, yeah.
and the thing
okay.
is, that the information, I mean, sometimes, and I've done it, I've sent photographs of the rubbish itself, and sometimes I've got the addresses, and I've sent that in, and as you say, nothing has ever come back. Yes, it goes eventually, but I don't know whether that culprit was caught.
I know that the IT developments can be long and protracted, and this one has been particularly tricky. But the aim is that Merton residents will have a login, so that when you log in, you will have your information there, so you won't have to pre-populate. It'll be pre-populated, you won't have to put it again, and then you would be able to see how your report's going. What I'm trying to bridge is the gap between what you're asking for now and what I know will be the state that we'll be in when that's developed. So we need to bridge that gap. So we're looking more towards an account where you can log in as a resident of the borough, see your council tax, see how much is outstanding, whether the amounts have gone off, see what reports you've made, see whether your garden waste is coming up for renewal, whether your residence parking permit is coming up for renewal. This is the relationship we want to have, a customer relationship system that manages that. But it has to be that for a borough, our priority has to be children and young people who are vulnerable, and older people, adult social care. They are the priorities. The other things coming alongside it are the IT developments, the other enhancements that have to take second place to that. They always have to take, but that is still what we're aiming for, because it's the only way that we can give you the information that you're just asking for in a quick way. But what was going through my head is just how can we bridge the gap? So it's between now and then.
And have any other councils done a similar system that you're talking about that you can get best practice from?
You'd think, but IT companies are notorious at saying you're not quite the same as this company, you're not saying... I've worked in the IT industry myself. I worked for an airline where we were commissioning things all over the place, and very often we ended up abandoning what was commissioned because we were trying to adapt someone else's rather than do it from scratch. So there's no right or wrong answer on that. But we are working with companies who work with other authorities, yes.
Well, all I know is that there is a council, I can't remember which one it is in Wales, and they've got the highest
Let me know
recycling
that.
level.
Oh, recycling level, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
recycling.
So yes, don't worry.
We can't all log on.
Yeah.
So can we have figures published in the local Guardian or copies in My Merton as to how many complaints we've had, how many were resolved, what action was taken against the owner? So, and then can we please get on to the school?
The school,
Yes,
please.
the school.
Yes.
Yes.
Really priority, aren't they?
Right, any other questions about... No more questions. Let's get to the school.
No, but I would just say in conclusion there that we are working with our library service to make sure they're geared up to help people who are requesting things, whether it's bags, reporting fly tipping, requesting an extra caddy, so they will be able to go in. So those who haven't got access to smartphones or IT can go and do it at the library. And that may be a way that we can publicise some of the figures there and get that out so people can help them.
Quickly, there's one question that somebody raised earlier that I get asked a lot, which is about the main streets that still have bags and what we're doing about reducing litter on main streets like Merton High Street and Merton Road.
Well, the flats above shop service will continue as it is, because there is, a Monday and Thursday collection. There's very little we can do to alter that because people don't have anywhere to store them. The Haydens Road, which is known about as an area where you open straight onto the pavement, has to be a solution with bags. It will continue with that way.
And is there anything we can do to stop residents putting their bags out onto the completely wrong dates?
Well, I've been out, and I don't want to prolong it too long, but I've been out with enforcement officers when we've gone through bags, we've taken pictures of addresses, and we are actually taking those people through the court system for not complying with what they should be doing, which is putting rubbish out on the streets where it shouldn't be. It's basically fly tipping. Yes. Merton issued 7,000 penalty notices last year, and that included fly tipping, one of the third highest in the country for prosecution of fly tippers, and we have one of the highest collection rates of our fines. not ideal situation to end on, because that's about, you know, the stick you use to bring people back into line. But we are prepared to do that, and we will be naming and shaming. I'm not a name and shamer normally, but I'm going to be.
Good. Okay, great. So if anyone's raised any questions about the bins that you want us to follow up on, grab one of ours, drop us an email, or if you left your details at the back, just write a note next to it that you wanted to contact you. So yeah, well, the other big issue in particularly this ward is, thank you very much for coming. Yes, we're now going to talk about the proposals for the school. So if that's of less interest to anyone, completely understand. I assume you all know that the South Wimbledon school now exists. It's in a temporary site at Wheelie Avenue at the moment, with 128 pupils who started last week. That is in Cannon Hill ward, which is where Pauline and Mark are the councillors, and they've been down to kind of have a look. And lots of happy, shiny pupils have already started attending. And that school was created because of the growing demand for places following the expansion of primary schools, and the fact that more and more families want to come and live around here. The tension has always been about finding the permanent site, and the proposal is that the permanent site is on between Hyde Park and Moranton Way. I assume you all usually know that. The planning application is in, and the planning application is technically from Harris and the Education ESFA, the Education Skills Funding Agency, and it's now in the planning process. So if you go online, you can see all of the details about it. I printed off some photos just to give you an idea if anyone hasn't taken a look. The easiest thing to review if you want just an overview is the one that says Design Access Statement. And there's recently been a few amendments to things that have been updated because of some additional information that we requested from them. Martin, do you want to talk about it?
Well, we requested additional information in terms of air quality, because this has been raised in many of the representations that have actually been made, and further work is being done on that. So it's not coming to this month's planning committee, it will be coming to October's. There has been some issues raised about the design. So looking at potential, I think there's been some modifications put in. But I will say about the youth school, I've been involved in politics in Merton for a number of years, and we have a desperate need for a youth school in Wimbledon, because we've got, our school roles have risen by a third. We've successfully expanded our primary schools in the borough. An additional 21 forms of entry were provided, a programme that completed in 2015. So this has been a major undertaking. We now have to actually address the secondary school issue. So there's a youth secondary school being opened, as Ellie said, down in Wheelie Avenue, but it's only a temporary base before we hope that a youth school will be there, which will open in September 2020. I'm very excited because I know there is a need, desperate need, for school places here in the middle of the borough, which is the area of highest demand here in Merton. Harris is an outstanding provider. Both their secondary schools are rated outstanding by Ofsted. There's one in my ward, Pollard Hill. There's another one in Morden. Their primary academy in Pollard Hill is also rated outstanding and heavily oversubscribed as well. And I think that's something we should welcome, because we do want education providers which are outstanding, because it's important to give our children the best possible start in life. Now, I know with the youth school, many obviously have raised issues about the size of the site, about access to green spaces and playing fields, but we're very limited because there's very few sites in the borough, in the Wimbledon area, which would have accommodated youth schools. So as a council, we did an extensive site search over about 3 years before we came to this site, which at the moment has a number of different land holdings. I think there's obviously a number of questions. Obviously, I'll let people raise.
Can I just,
and Stephen wants to say a few
before we
words.
get to questions, we will get to questions. Just to give the overarching situation regarding finances. So, in order to put together the site at Hyde Park, the council costs are about 5 to 6 million. The new to build a brand new school would cost about 30 million. So the council has allocated, in terms of getting the land together, 5 to 6 million. That's all it can afford. The Department for Education, the Education Funding Council provide the remainder of those costs. So, as a council, we've improved and expanded primary schools. Parents very, very happy. Thousands of parents created 4,400 extra primary school places. Parents want their kids to go to schools in the London Borough of Merton. Years ago, kids were going out of borough. That is no good. Then the demand came in for secondary schools. Now, in terms of Harris, I have written to the Secretary of State, who was then Nicky Morgan, to put a stop to mandatory academies. I wrote to Theresa May, who used to be a councillor here, to put a stop to the ongoing march of grammar schools. So we as a council are quite clear. We're a traditional ILIA local authority. We only have 5 academies. If you look at other local authorities, they've got 20, 70. We're a traditional local authority. We have great faith schools, we have outstanding schools, Rickard's Lodge, we have Rutlish, we have Ursuline. These are great. We have a schools improvement team.
If they can't breathe.
We have an outstanding schools improvement team that improve results and standards for our schools. In my ward, Ravensbury ward, Bishopsford School used to be Garth, now a Harris Academy, outstanding, which is good for
I've only got about 10 minutes down. Can we get
so please be mindful. We have a great Department for Education ourselves, so we have the support.
Stephen, are you willing to listen to what people want to say? You have
yes,
said this. We don't have time. We don't have time.
So I just wanted to lay the context. Thank you very much.
Not everything else. Thank you. Okay, yes, we do want to take questions. Because as a local councillor, I want to know what people think about the proposed plan. I want to prioritise hearing from Abbey residents, if I'm honest. I'll listen to everybody.
That's not right, because actually the boundaries of the school go well beyond Abbey. Yeah. So that's not acceptable.
The boundaries of the school.
The boundaries, the actual area of the school go well beyond Abbey.
It'll definitely serve Abbey.
So any parent should be allowed to ask a question.
Any parents?
Any parent?
Yes.
Or
any parents here? I'd love to hear.
Anyone concerned should be allowed to ask the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure lots of people here are neither parents nor live anywhere nearby.
I am a parent, and I live in Abbey.
Peter, you did have your hand up first.
Okay. Abbey School. In the report he's done on this school, published in May, in your own air quality report by Merton Council, it says that Merton Abbey School is one of the most polluted sites in the whole of the borough. Merton Council, not Peter Walker. Sadiq Khan, in his report, quotes that there are proposals for a new secondary school in Harris. The head teacher is very concerned about the impact the additional school on High Park will have on transport network and air quality. He also goes on to point out that there is a doubling of car parking spaces on the High Path thanks to your approval of the redevelopment of the High Path, and a doubling of bed spaces. So not only is this the highest area, according to Merton, of air quality pollution in the borough, but the plans already approved by you are going to make it worse, and if you put 1,100 children there, my fear is for the 400 children at Merton Abbey Primary School. I do not believe that any councillor here will vote for this in light of the Mayor's report and in light of your report. If you do, you're endangering the health and making the air quality of those children in Merton Abbey Primary School even worse, and you're endangering the future health of 1,100 pupils. My question is, are you going to abandon this because we must tackle air pollution, and the Mayor says it's killing thousands of Londoners a year?
We must tackle air pollution. Completely agree. And we want to tackle air quality. We want to improve air quality across the borough. Completely agree.
So officers are working on the air quality issue. And when you come to the planning meeting, all this is subject to planning. So the planning committee will have all it needs in front of it including the Environment Agency.
Have you read it?
Air pollution experts, including that report. They'll have all that.
Have you read it?
They'll have all that.
Have you read it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Have you read it?
I have seen it.
Have you read it?
I am fully aware.
I've read it.
Okay, I think
I've sat down with the head teacher and I've read it.
I am fully aware. So all applications for buildings in this borough go before a highly regulated planning committee, planning applications committee. It's highly regulated, and the Environment Agency is involved, the flood agency is involved, air quality issues will be involved, and those will be looked at quite
Isn't
finely.
the question, are you going to support this school with the air quality issue? Yes or no?
We will support this school, yeah, because we're supportive of a brand new school
In this
coming.
site.
Then, let me finish. Then it is subject to the Planning Applications Committee about whether it goes on that site.
You as councillors believe that it's a price worth paying. That's what we're
There's
asking.
no issues with prices worth paying. No,
Yes.
it's not
Is
what
it yes?
price worth paying.
It's a
It is all buildings, all things that stick out of the ground in the London Borough of Merton are subject to the Planning Applications Committee. At the Planning Applications Committee, listen, at the Planning Applications Committee there are experts, technical experts, yeah, air quality experts. They will have a full report on air quality, on flooding, on all aspects of where that school will be.
Okay.
The Department for Education will be involved, the Harris provider will be involved,
I
the
understand
local
that.
authority. So they will make the final decision as to where air quality, the air quality levels, safety levels are met, and we will abide by their view at the Planning Applications Committee. But we are supportive of a secondary school in the London Borough of Merton. As far as I know, where it's going to be built, subject to planning permission.
I want to make a few more questions, but just to reiterate, so we've asked them to do more work on air quality because we have concerns about this.
What possible work?
What can you do to stop it? For example, looking at additional trees and fences and things like that.
I don't believe it.
You're the air quality experts now, are you? This lady had a while ago.
Can I just say, there's a location that is ludicrous because Hyde Park is a very small road. The Hyde Park regeneration is going to be a building site for 10 or 15 years, creating more pollution. Are you looking for an alternative site now?
No.
Why not?
We'll wait to see the decision of the Planning Applications Committee.
Can I just say
And
something?
the site has the support for the Department for Education and has the support of experts versed in where schools should be.
Experts make mistakes. They
Which is why it is subject to the democratically run Planning Applications Committee. We will defer to them on air quality on the site.
Okay, sorry, lady.
When the building starts or after the building starts?
Sorry.
The planning applications.
Someone say when the children are there. Shocking.
Sorry, yeah.
The planning application, as it stands, all the documents on the planning application do not include the Mayor's report. They do not include Merton's own report on the test tubes that are on the site where the school is supposed to happen, and they show higher than accepted levels of air pollution. We have had an extra amended document, correct, by the environmentalist officer, the expert at Merton, saying that it's slightly above the accepted level, but that's all right. That's not such a problem. Also, you haven't got the documents from the design review panel, which have given this scheme 2 yellows, 2 ambers, which means it's not a go-ahead. So you're not getting your highest green rating. Also, you do not the latest the latest letter, an objection by Sports England. The actual letter is not on the application, so you're not actually giving people, all the councillors, a full view of this application, and you're only allowing the students of Merton Abbey Primary, where the green space is the only playing sporting area. You're going to take only a width length of a tennis court to allow the harass children to play on this multi-use games area, and you're allowing the Merton Abbey students, there was supposed to be some collaboration between the school and the Harris School, 3 hours a week. That is an insult. It's an insult that you are allowing those children to lose their green space. That space was already reduced when you expanded that school several years ago. So their green space is already reduced, and you're taking half of it, because if you go around you can see how big the space is. Don't tell me no. Don't shake your heads at me. Go. It is half of that green. It is half of that green space. You go and see that green space. Go again, Eleanor, and look at the planning application, and then come back and say that those children will only get 3 hours use per week to use a multi-use games area, which was theirs to start with. How is that improving the lives of children and giving them a better start? How is that the case?
Okay, I'm glad you raised that, because there were some lies going around about the loss of playing fields. I see a leaflet claiming that Merton Abbey are losing all of their playing field and that they will have to go to Nursery Road. That is factually incorrect, and it is being spread by another councillor. That is just not true. They are losing a lot less than half. It's from the tree at the end down.
They're losing some, aren't
They're
they?
losing some.
They're losing some.
They're losing some, and they're gaining access to muggers at the moment.
3 hours a week, Eleanor. 3 hours a week.
What they are losing is not playing field. It's grass. I've been round the school with Michael, and Michael says they don't use it for games. They use it for the kids running around. What he's upset about is the loss of one of the trees, because they like playing. The children like playing in the trees. They're going to still have all those trees at the back. What they'll gain is those muggers. I
3 hours a week.
More than 3 hours a week.
No,
that's
it is.
kind of basis.
Do you know what? You look at your planning application, because this was written by your officer, Tom Proctor, on 2 entries on that application, on the planning portal. He has said 3 hours a week, because the Harris School kids need to use it more.
They can negotiate more.
That's outrageous.
That's outrageous. Can we all appreciate the final documents? They're all been worked on. Nothing is finalised for the Planning Applications Committee. Paperwork is worked on right up to that meeting, and experts in air quality, in floods, teaching experts, educational experts, the Department for Education, the Schools Funding Council, all these people will be involved in making sure this is a viable place for a brand new secondary school for the London Borough of Merton. And then the final decision is entirely up to who you democratically elect as councillors, who then get onto the Planning Applications Committee. So the final decision is by councillors, not by officers, on the advice of technical experts, professional experts on air quality and all those issues.
Okay, I'm going to take the final few questions and then try and answer them. So there's 2 here then.
Can I just ask, I'm going to assume that the Planning Applications Committee turns it down because the evidence is that it's not a suitable site for lots of different reasons. Then are you going to start looking for a suitable site?
Okay, we're going to take a few questions together. Thank you. That's a very clear question. That's a really clear question.
Okay, apart from trying to put this thing on a postage stamp sized piece of land, what about access to and from this thing? I know I've just read the report. You know, how are we going to cope with 1,100 students on Merton High Street trying to catch a bus home? Because, quite frankly, that road is a disaster as it is now, trying to get up and down to the bus, let alone having hundreds more children, even if it's at graduated time, sort of trying to get out there and get to and from school. It'd be an absolute nightmare.
Very clearly different questions, which we can talk about now and we can raise again. And then Abbey.
Yeah, it wasn't a question so much. I think I just want to say, as someone who's in my early 30s and hopefully isn't too far away from having children, it is a real concern to me that when I choose to have children, there may not be space at any of the secondary schools in Wimbledon, and it feels like that's getting lost in this debate. We need a new secondary school. Will you let me finish?
I will. I didn't say anything. I put my hand up.
So that is a concern, and I grew up in Wimbledon. I was brought up Catholic, so I was lucky enough to go to the Ursuline. But someone who's sort of non-religious now, that immediately knocks out 2 of the great schools in Wimbledon. We know the others are pretty much at capacity. So where are we going to have this new school? And I much prefer that my kids went to a local school in South Wimbledon or Colliers than having to trek across to the other side of the borough. I think the kind of demographic of that age and of sorry, I don't want to sort of, doing your dad this meeting, but it doesn't feel like the voice of the parent is
Does anybody here have primary school age children?
at all, and I think someone should say that.
So there's two of us here with primary school age children for whom this is a direct
We've had discussion on. We've had various. We've had a number of discussions and consultations with Harris, with parents who've gone round the borough discussing about setting up this brand new secondary school. Harris in Whatley, which has just started, is oversubscribed, 128, 200 I think applied, so that's oversubscribed. We estimate that this brand new school will be oversubscribed. The parents who want to go to this school are not here. The parents who want to go to this school will be as concerned as you are probably about air quality, but they will make their own judgment because the planning applications committee will make their final judgment based on technical know-how on air quality. We need to meet those air quality levels. That is beyond level. Let me talk to you about the expansion of a primary school in Dundonald Park. That was objected to violently by a number of residents. Throughout. And
Are you going to take the credit for that?
No. Peter worked on that. Peter worked on that as well to defend that. That school is up and running. But when the debate was going on about why we shouldn't do that, all these discussions about air quality and about it's in a park, about it shouldn't be there, it should be somewhere else. All that was raging. At the end of the day, the arbiters of where something is built, whether it's a swimming pool in Cannon Hill, the brand new leisure centre, whether it's a brand new library in Collinswood that we've built, whether it's the brand new Morton Town Centre we're going to develop, all that is based on technical know-how, professional people putting all the paperwork before the planning applications committee. They decide whether this school has passed air quality levels. They will decide that, not me, not you.
Okay, we're going to have to close this down. But I just want to quickly talk about the question about access and transport and Merton Road being an IMF. Yeah, completely agree. And as a councillor, there's lots of things that we need to do around.
TfL have made representations about that because clearly, like any youth school, wherever you set it up, there will be additional pupils, and you will have to look at buses.
And there's a wider issue around what we do around South Wimbledon Junction and Merton Road. What I would urge you to do is, if you clearly feel strongly about this, if you've made representations, I'll have seen them because I've read all the representations. If you haven't and you want to let me know what you think, drop me an email. As I said at the beginning of this meeting, why we spent so long on bins is because I've had many emails and phone calls over the past few weeks, and I've had one about the school, and it was about this air quality issue, which I have great sympathy for. We do need to clear out of here, or else I'm going to get in trouble with the lady I've got to get the keys back to. Thank you very much for coming.
Sorry, this lady's had her hand up for a while. She said that she had primary school aged children. I would be interested to see what you say.
My concern is about what you're going to do with the existing Abbey recreation ground and green field space there, because that's part of this extension of TfL, and that is actually a green space that could be used for children to play on, which is opposite the school, but we've heard it's going to be bulldozed over as a tram junction as part of the Merton Sutton extension, and that's why it hasn't been resolved. That's another loss of green space, which is a response. So we need to know what the impact is going to be of the transport.
Some playing fields, but it wouldn't bulldoze the whole park if you're going to.
Yes, it would take up half the park.
We'll look at that for you.